All right, hey everybody, happy Sunday. I'm here with Lavanya, Devdas,
Hi.
and we met. Actually, I wish I had a selfie stick because this is
I
so
know.
close. But all right, let's just. So it's interesting. We met probably like a month ago.
We did on Highland Avenue.
It was on Highland Avenue. It was one of those nights that I set up over in Shadyside, and I'm just hanging out, talking to people, and Lavanya stopped up with Sam, right?
It was actually Sean.
It was Sean.
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, you tell the story.
Sure. So I think Sean and I were walking down Highland Avenue. We just wanted to eat some food from Mad Max, of course. And then
So good.
it's so good, right? And then and then I came across Kimberly, and she was there very poisedly reading a book on the chair. And then
Wasting time while people just walk by, like
Well-
just waiting for someone to say hi.
And I'm glad we crossed paths because I saw her. But what caught my eye were all of those amazing paintings that she had on display, like different sizes, different textures, different abstracts, different concrete ones, and I fell in love with them instantly. And that's how we connected. We started talking with one another, and we talked about those different paintings, love for art, how therapeutic it can be. And
Well, even if you remember that one painting, this is when it really got wild because, for me, I don't just paint just to make a pretty picture. There's always some kind of story behind it, whether I realize it at the time
yeah.
or afterward. You really reflect and try to find some, universal truths or some things that are happening in the world that, you can really create a conversation with and really connect with people and talk about things that you might otherwise not, because a lot of people like to just talk about dishwashers and Kim Kardashian's butt. You know what I mean?
I do.
So it was interesting. She picked up this one print, and the original had sold a while back. But it's very rare that someone picks up this particular print, and she had insight into it so quickly about exactly what it was, and then saw stuff that I didn't even see.
Right. I think, and one of them was the one where you had passed the tunnel.
Yes.
And you had taken a picture, and it had all of these really cool light waves, and man, that looked so cool, and it just automatically brought out different perspectives of how we can all look at a painting and actually relate in such different ways to it. Like there's so much meaning to it, at least for
Yeah,
me.
absolutely. And so once she was telling me her interpretation of the painting was actually, the painting was called A Mind of One's Own. So if you're interested in taking a look at about the exact painting that we're talking about, you can just go on kimberrystudio.com under canvas paintings and you'll see it there. And it's very abstract-y, but it does have figurative movement in it. And she caught on immediately about what it was about, and I said, you got to come to the studio. Will you just come to the house? Well, you guys know it's half a house, half a studio. I said, you got to come over and let's just take some time.
Yeah.
And I want to get your interpretation of the work that I've got here. So it was like 3 weeks ago.
I believe so, yeah.
So it was 3 weeks ago. She comes over and it was just okay. I mean, it was just like nailing it on the head every single time. And I thought, with your background, will you share a bit about your background?
Sure. So I am a counseling psychologist, and I do a lot of interpretive work with college students. And so for me, looking at artwork, it's almost like the paintings speak to the lived experiences of what's in the painting, and bringing out all of that insight and using a bit of psychology and theory to interpret the lived experiences that's been captured through those paintings. I think just comes to show that art and psychology, art and therapy can go hand in hand so much.
Absolutely.
And I could feel it. I could tap into my artistic side, and I could tap into the psychologist side of me too. So it was pretty neat to experience that intersection.
And one thing I thought was really great too is sometimes I go a little nihilistic with my own interpretation, and it was great because there were some things I was like, oh, this is a little bit dark. She's like, no, actually that's not. That actually is going through. And I was like, this is good. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna do a tour of the paintings that are here at the studio, and we're gonna listen to her interpretations through each painting and really just create a conversation.
Absolutely.
And if you guys want to type in and chat with us and send some comments our way while we're going through this tour, that'd be great too. So let's get
Let's do
started.
it.
All right. Okay. So the first ones we're going to do, because we're right now, we're in the living room in here. So in the living room, it's mostly just the portraits. So let's just start off with the portraits.
Sure.
Does that sound good?
That sounds good.
Okay. So this is the first one. We've got our coffee here. And I'm actually going to turn it on. I'm going to turn the camera on to you.
Okay.
And the paintings. Okay. So I'm
Which
just
one
going
are
to
we looking at first?
Let's do this one first.
Okay. So when I look at this one, what I see is a lot of things. I see, if you look at, I'm looking at it part by part, but also whole. So when I look at just the black part of it, it's almost like life's challenges, or there's something stressful and catastrophic going on, right? So that's that.
Might be onto
part of it.
something.
That's that part. But if you look at this section that's within the darker shade of the painting, you can see a person's face and the upper part of the body. And it's almost like she's accepting what's happening around her. It doesn't strike me as someone who's bogged down. It strikes me as someone who's living in collaboration with the stressful part of her life. He or she is trying to integrate it. And what I'm also noticing is this lower part right here is almost like a flame for me. So this feels like her core energy. And on both sides, if you notice, there's like something emerging onto the top. So it's almost like she's fueled by this energy of resilience. And you can see some part of it has also reached this part. And so is the case here. Some part of it has reached this part. And you can see that it's not all of a dark shade. These are also white parts of the dark shade, which kind of tells me that the energy of resilience kind of penetrates the darker portions to create those white spots. And it's almost like she's healing, because you see some white spots on her, on this person's self as well. And if you notice, there's a purple here, and there's a purple part to this part of her, to this part of their face too. So what that tells me is it's integrative. This person is not separate from this shade, and the shade is not separate from this person. They're living in conjunction, they're living in harmony. So parts of these are influencing this person, and the energy from within this person and this person's presence is influencing the environment. So that's what I get when I look at this particular painting.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and it's very powerful too, because I think when you look at it from such different lenses, you can look at it as a person who's bogged down by what's happening around, or you can also look at it from this person who's kind of healing and drawing from the energy within to influence what's happening around. Yeah.
Thank you for that. And that one's called Reflection.
Oh.
And that was one of two pieces. The next one we're going to look at as well was one of two pieces that were shown in the Louvre 2 years ago during an art fair.
Oh.
And it's funny because I'm curious to see if maybe that's some of the things that they saw as well.
I would be curious,
Because it's funny. I very rarely ever show the portrait series, and those were the two that they picked, which I thought was very interesting. So I didn't see all that you see.
Oh.
So it's really neat. So let's move to this one here. Maybe we'll set this up a little higher. Let's put it on the couch. Here we go. And now this one's called Laura. And again, this was one of the portrait series. You know what? Let's put it, because the light over here is a little bit tricky. I know. Here, if you hold that for 1 second, we can put it on the piano.
Let's do that.
Yeah, that'll work. I'll just like set it right there. Oh yeah, that works. Okay, so this one's called Laura, and it was in the same vein as, Reflection that we just looked at.
Right. Well, this one has a different feel to it compared to that one. And here's what I'm seeing. The similarity is automatically in terms of there are different shades, not just one dark shade compared to that one. So there are different shades, as you can see, that represents different spheres of life that this person's going through. So it could be joy, happiness, challenges, excitement, transitions, change. It could be anything. What I also notice is there's almost like a slight smile on this person's face. And what that tells me is it's almost like this person is saying, I'm bracing all the different changes that I'm surrounded by. I'm bracing all the transitions I'm going through. And it's almost like she's holding this glass of a drink with a straw to say, I'm embracing this and I'm going to celebrate me and I'm going to embrace all of the changes that I'm going through right now. So it's almost in celebration with that smile. And what I also notice going along with that is, if you look at this person's face, it's a bit more fluid. What I mean is that person right there has a more defined look. This person's face is more fluid, meaning this person has let more of the environment go through her or him. So what I'm noticing is, because of that fluidity, because of that exchange happening more easily between the environment, the change, the transition, and this person, there seems to be a smile, because there's a distinct form to this person, meaning this person knows where they stand. And at the same time, they continue to form shape, because if you notice this part, this is still forming. Right? So this part's still informing this person's identity, and this person saying, well, let's make it happen. I'm here.
And you know what's interesting is in real life, that's what Laura would say.
Oh, really?
That's pretty amazing. Yes.
Huh.
Yes.
Oh, gosh, yeah. And it speaks to a lot of therapy work that I do with students, too, in the sense of saying how some people, you know, they have transitions, and this is also the time where a lot of freshmen are coming in. And I can tell with some of them, it's like, yes, I'm ready, I'm excited, I'm scared, and at the same time, I'm ready to be working with the environment. And there are others who are really petrified. And so this person reminds me of someone who's ready, who's not afraid, maybe a little bit, but it's almost like this person has integrated all of those emotions associated with any kind of transition or change. So that's what I see in this painting.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that.
Of course.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the library here. We've just tried to set up the paintings in each room so it's easy for us to really take a look at.
Yeah.
And so you pick the one you want to start with.
Oh my
Which
gosh,
one's
I could
speaking
just
to you?
live here.
I'd love for you to just move in. We've got plenty of space.
I love it. So I'm going to start off with that one.
Okay.
Because this one calls to me in a way. Just because I feel like compared to the others, this has more of an abstract shape and almost like a shape that's open to interpretation. So this almost feels like, here's a box, right? This feels like a unique box. And it almost feels like this is a keyhole to this box. And if you look at its exterior first, it looks a bit ragged. It looks a bit bent out of shape. But what it's saying is, if you look through the keyhole, look at all the dimensions and patterns within it. It has different kinds of dots, different kinds of shapes, colors, shades, and it's saying life can look very, very shapeless and uninterpretable from the outside. But if you take a chance and if you step in through the keyhole to look at life more intricately, you're not going to experience it unidimensionally. You're going to experience aspects of life that feels like light at the end of the tunnel. And these dots represent the path to those tunnels to get to the light. And if you look at all of these streams going up right this way, it tells you that, well, you have different paths that you can take. You can go downward or you can go upward. But look at where they all lead to. They lead to outside of the box. Or you can go from outside to inside of these boxes using these very trails. But look where you land. You land on the white side of things. You land at the bottom of the box, and if you look at it, you could land at different spheres of these boxes, right? But at the same time, it doesn't look scary. It looks abstract. It's open to experience. It's open to interpretation, but it doesn't say. Yeah, it's a very non-judgmental painting. Is the best way I can describe it as. So that's why this one calls out to me.
I love that interpretation. And it's interesting that you mentioned the keyhole.
Yeah.
This was the last thing that I added to it, and it needed that. But I never really thought about it in a very conscious way that it was a keyhole. But that's exactly what it is. That makes so much sense.
Yeah, because it's almost like, this whole thing is closed, but then here's a square box with like a tiny hole in here. And it's saying, please look inside.
Yeah. I talk a lot about boxes too, mental boxes, mental you know, beliefs. There's the word lie is in the middle of a belief.
Oh.
You know, because we can believe a lot of lies, can't we?
We can.
And we can trap our minds into so many different boxes that keep us from being able to see the beauty that really is around us.
Exactly. And I think that's such a neat way of looking at this part too, is that if you look at this box just with one set of thinking, right? What you're going to eventually end up doing is saying, I'm going to approach life as if only these sets of beliefs or thinking exist. You can't look at multiple perspectives.
Exactly.
So when we start looking at things like inside this box, if you look at it unidimensionally, then we start to respond as if that was the only way of being in this world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're in sync.
In sync. And we're not talking about a boy band, if you know what I'm talking about. All right. So which one would you like to tackle next?
The next one I want to tackle is this one.
Okay.
This one feels very unique to me. And I say that because it's different shades of the same color.
I will say one thing real quick.
Yeah.
This does go, this one here
Yeah.
is a diptych, which means it is in conjunction with this. And just to kind of set up the scenario, when I usually hang these two paintings together, I put this in the middle just to kind of break up the monotony of the white, but usually these two paintings will either be side by side, vertical, or they turn horizontal and they become like an equal sign. So that being said, all right.
That's impressive. Well, I want to, maybe after I, speak a little bit to this, if you don't mind, moving
however,
it to make it
yeah,
that equal sign, that would be great. So, okay, I'm just going to sit. What I notice in this particular painting is there are definitely different shades, right? And there are different forms and there are different ways. I mean, they have, some of them are very concrete, like this one. It has a particular abstract shape, whereas the others are more interwoven, right? So for me, what this represents is the cycle of life and death. And I say that because if you look at the whole picture, right, you'll notice that there is a shape right here in the inner part, holistically. And for me, this is beautiful because it represents the cycle of birth, where it starts right from here, right? And then you have various types of experiences that molds your personality and your life in a certain way. And then you weave in and out of your relationships, your experiences, and the people around you. Along the way, you have hardships, you have joys, you have celebrations and jubilations that you will celebrate. And for me, the splash right here represents that kind of celebration. If you notice, it's a splash with like different threads woven coming out of it. And for me, those are jubilations that go a long way in informing your development right here at the center. So if you notice along the way, all of these threads that are woven in and out, they are definitely celebrations and parts that make up and strengthen who you are as a person. Look at it. It's going all the way across, right? Not just within here, but it's weaving you in and out, which means you must be drawing so much strength for everything that you celebrate. At the same time, if you notice, there are some that are more short-lived. If you look at this one, this right here, it ends right here. And this one ends right here too, which means that some celebrations are short-lived and then you have a break and then you get to revamp your direction, go back here, and then you celebrate, you have another achievement, or you go through another direction in life, and that takes you into a different direction right here. So you'll notice that some of them are cut, which means it could be a chaotic period in your life, or it could be some challenges or transitions that are happening in your life. Because if you look at this area right here, you don't have very many lines weaving in and out. So this could be almost like the end cycle of life, where you've integrated everything from the bottom up to the top, right? And then you reach this part where there are no longer, or there are very few lines running across, which means you've integrated most of it right here. And now if I expand it to the outer environment, the first half of your life or the first half of life offers you so many opportunities and celebrations with breaks and challenges. If you notice this side, there are lesser threads weaving in and out, right? Not threads, lines weaving in and out. And then you have more cracks here, right? There are more abrupt lines here that are getting cut off right here. And so what that probably means is, you know, you've reached your end stage maybe, and this side represents more of the challenges. But the key is not about choosing this side over this side. The key is how do you integrate in the middle, choosing from both sides, the challenging sides as well as the jubilatory side of life, till you reach the end. And if you notice the top part of this painting, it's almost blank, right? What that means is you've completed your cycle of life, you're integrated, and you're ready to move on. So that's what this means for me.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too because everything that you just said about this painting, there is a floor painting. I don't think, did I show you the floor painting last time down in the basement?
No.
Okay, we're going to go down there today at some point, and it's right in line, interestingly enough, of what you just talked about just with this one.
Oh.
Which is really interesting, but it's a totally different way of expressing it.
I want to see it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So let's look at this one right here.
I can't wait. This is a new one. You didn't see this one last
I didn't
time.
see this one before, so I'm taking it in. And I love it. I love it because it reminds me of Greek mythology in a way. And I say that because if you look at it just from here, this looks like the head of an animal, right? And here's the center part of that. Here's the second head. And here's the third one.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, and it's almost like this whole entity with three heads. And this one has two dots on it. And so it's almost like there's something overlooking this particular painting. And what it strikes me as is it almost represents the different spheres of life or the different spheres of emotions. So for me, this represents an eagerness and a willingness to brace life. Or it's almost like you're ready to take on what's facing you. This one feels like the more skeptical side of life because you're weighing the pros and cons. So you're right in the middle and you're weighing it out a little bit to see which direction you want to go in or whether you want to face a situation or not. This one's almost like, it's almost like something that's more regulatory, meaning let's not plunge too much ahead, you know, and let's not take a complete break in between. It's almost like let's just hold the brake, step back and see whether we want to move forward or whether we want to hold up and be a little bit more skeptical. So it's almost like this side of it controls these two aspects. And I say Greek mythology because I know a lot of, you know, mystic creatures in the oceans or a lot of mystic gods that I've read about, to my limited knowledge, are always about regulating the different forces of life.
Yes.
Right? So it's about how do you navigate, you know, all the challenges, what strengths do you need, what forces do you need to wield. That feels very Greek mythology to me based on what I've been exposed to. So that's what this painting reminds me of.
That's great.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
So I'm curious, like, what are your thoughts on this one?
I think you hit on the nail. With me, it felt very. It was definitely a stretch from what I normally do, and I'm going through very different pulls. Like, should I be more creative and you know, ethereal? Do I need to be more practical? You know, all these different things that pull you in different ways. And for me, I mean, I grew up on Greek mythology. I was all about it. I mean, like, you know, I'm all about all kinds of mythology, biblical, Greek, Roman, Hindu, all of it. I always wanted to know because I do believe that there are so many real truths, literal to metaphysical or metaphorical, all of it. And of course, it's always come out in my art in some ways, but this one really pushed some limits with me because I almost judged it.
Really?
I almost went, this is too weird.
Oh.
You know what I mean? It was, but then I said, no. I'm going to leave this. And the more I just sat and just let it, I liked it. And it's kind of like what we do with ourselves. We can be so quick to judge ourselves, especially if it's an aspect of ourselves that we don't necessarily like, or we're having to confront an emotion or a state. Like, I'm supposed to always have it together. Well, this shows I don't.
Right. The vulnerability piece is a little bit...
Absolutely. You know, and showing the different, you know, should I go this way? Should I go that way?
Yeah.
You know, you know, I've been more vocal in my quote unquote brokenness the last few years than I used to be. You know, I was tough as nails before.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's interesting how people react in society too. When people see a vulnerability, it's interesting to see how they react to it.
You're right.
Because some people see it as a way to attack another person, because how dare I can't show my vulnerability, so how dare you? So you must be a weak person, so pow, you know?
Right.
And I feel like we're either going to become statues, literally. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, you know what, it's interesting that we talk about statues, because you see all these people. Hold on, we're gonna sit for a hot second. We're gonna talk like this for a hot minute, because we're talking some serious stuff here. So let's talk about the symbolism of right now people literally taking down statues.
True.
So what could be the? I wore too much blush today. I'm looking like a doll today.
I think you look great.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm just not used to wearing so much makeup. But anyway, you know, if we are so afraid, we're so prideful in ourselves of not showing vulnerability, because our society creates a subconscious feeling of you're going to be cannibalized if you show vulnerability.
Right.
You've got to be tough. What is the best way that you can express your anger at not showing your vulnerability? You tear down statues because you feel like a statue.
Right. Because you've not been in touch with yourself for such a long time because of fear of how it's going to be received, or fear of being judged.
Or self-criticism. Or, I mean, our society puts people in so many label boxes of expression or non-expression that people are literally living their lives out as, well, are you a Kanye statue? Are you a this person statue? Are you a that person statue? Like, we've become prototypes that are easily accepted by other people, or not accepted by other people.
And I think, and in addition to that, a lot of people confuse not taking a stance with, well, you need to pick a side, because it's so important for people to label and categorize people. Either you're in this box, or you're in that box, or you're in this category or that category.
Absolutely.
And people mistake inclusion, and people mistake acceptance and holding. You don't have to agree, but at least hold the beliefs and the values that are different from yours. Just give them a chance.
Give them a space.
Give them a space to breathe. But for a lot of people, when you do that and say, no, I want to understand you better, you think, oh, that's weak. Why aren't you standing up for what you believe in? Why do you want to know about something that doesn't resonate with you? That's weak. You don't know what you want.
Exactly.
So those are some of the messages in society that we have grown up with. And so all of a sudden, when a lot of things are erupting at the same time, like statues, it's like, well,
what's really going
on here? Why is it so hard to have a dialogue?
Yes.
You know, and this is not about who's right and who's wrong, but can we at least start by having a dialogue about it?
Absolutely.
It looks like we are far from it.
Yeah, it's almost like, you know, the ancients had the scapegoat ritual to vent all kinds of hurts, all kinds of missing the marks of sin or upsetness or angerness. And so something had to be the scapegoat. Something had to be the ideological scapegoat to just release all kinds of things that literally are derivatives of the real pain.
Right.
And, you know, everyone goes through their own things, but I feel personally, especially, you know, I'm older now, I've been around the block at least 2 or 3 times. And the one thing I am noticing is that the young kids are not able to really express themselves. Really, they're not. And I feel like when that happens, you're putting a lid on a really hot boiling water, when you're dealing with all kinds of things that are going on in the world, and all these things that are not good, and these poor young kids can't even express it the way that they should be able to express it.
Right.
They're told, take it or take a drug. You either deal with the reality or you take a drug. Well, you're going to have a whole bunch of people going crazy.
Well, there's that, and it's true, very quickly, but there's that, and there's also this piece of, you know, when you're a kid growing up, you don't have enough resources yet to challenge things that feel different for you as you're hearing it. So very early on, depending on the experiences that you grew up with, that informs your identity.
Yes.
And especially when you have an environment that feels chaotic and unstable.
Which how many kids go through that,
right?
Most.
So it's almost like you're going home and you're finding your family fighting over different things every day. And it's something new every day.
Yeah.
So you go home with the sense of uneasiness, the sense of panic.
Oh, it can drive you psychotic.
Right. And then imagine going to school and then going to an environment outside of school that says only this set of beliefs are accepted. How are they supposed to navigate their identities? And it's so fluid. People think that identities, once you're adults, it's formed. It's constantly molded and shaped by the environment.
By the environment, or how you choose. It's sometimes harder,
right?
But also how you choose to make your choices. You really, I hate to label myself in anything, because I feel like I'm an infinite being that's always experiencing different things, and then that keeps you open to really living in the moment, really being able to learn what you're supposed to learn at every given moment in this world.
Yeah.
You know, and also just being non-judgmental in the sense of, granted, not in the non-judgment of like, oh, no matter what environment I'm in, it's going to be safe. No, you have to be logical and go, I'm not going to throw myself in the middle of a chaotic world and think that I'm going to have peace in it. But you can have non-judgment in the sense of you don't have to be so self-critical or think that you're always in the worst situation ever.
Right. That, and like also recognizing that we're all going to have parts of our identities that are privileged and parts of our identities that are marginalized. We have to recognize that each and every one of us has that. And we have to be able to step back, engage in a lot of reflection, and say, okay, how is my privilege operating in my day-to-day dealings with people or life, and how are my marginalized aspects of my identities interacting with everyday life? And that can be so powerful in having conversations with people and being able to recognize that right now my privilege is what's operating. I'm coming across as someone who's very directive, or someone who's very intolerant of another person's views. That might not resonate very well with you. So recognizing what part of your identity is engaging in that particular conversation, I think, is very critical to, self-growth. And, as this painting speaks to, it's just rising up to complete life. You have to start within, with recognizing how each of those identities intersect and engage in conversations.
Whoa. So there we go.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. All right. So let's pick the next painting here to move on from that amazingness. Let's go. All right. Do you see anything from what we just talked about? Is there anything in this painting, I'm curious, that really you see that might be a part of what we just talked about?
Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. I don't know how I skipped this painting because it's so pertinent to what we just talked about in terms of different identities and like the intersections.
Exactly.
I mean, look at the difference in itself. I mean, you cannot tell just by looking at them, what are they thinking? What are they feeling? What do they represent? There is no way of knowing until you look closer and you actually ask questions like, what are these different colors on each person's face? What do they mean? What meaning and relevance does it have for that particular person's culture?
And are we willing to ask them what they mean, rather than us jumping to the conclusion of thinking we understand before we even try to understand?
Exactly. And
let's label them before we understand what they were doing with their own self-expression.
Right.
That's crazy.
Exactly. we assume and we say, this is what it is. Don't do that. Don't use that sort of pain. Or don't use don't, that's too much.
Exactly.
It's like, but that's coming from our own biases as to how we're viewing that person's lived experiences. But
absolutely,
I mean, going in there with an open mind, as we talked about in our discussion, is just to please step back and say, hey, I'm curious. Tell me more about what this represents for you.
Exactly.
What does this mean for you?
Exactly. What were your experiences, and what are your ideas, and that brought you to this creative way of expressing yourself, and how it becomes, whether it's ritualized. Like, I'm not much into ritual, because ritual is only good for the individual, because everyone's actions always at the end of the day really truly mean something very personal to them. It's very hard to force somebody else to just go through something without it becoming very superficial.
Yes.
And I think that's what we've lost in our own spirituality too, is that we've just gone along with, well, empty movement that means something to maybe one person,
right?
But there's a million people that they don't even get it.
No.
They're just like, well, someone told me I should do this, so I'm just going to do it.
I'm just going to do it, right? Without asking questions,
exactly.
or like getting to know someone with an open mind.
Exactly. And for me, if you notice, I do the tooth a lot.
Yeah.
I think you saw the tooth.
Yeah.
And for me, the tooth is a very ancient symbol in a lot of different ancient cultures. Specifically for me, I learned it originally through ancient Hebrew. They used the molar as a symbol of shin, which was sin, which was grinding your teeth, the vav. You grind your teeth when you miss the mark.
Oh,
isn't that interesting?
Goodness. How
grinding.
That's
so
fascinating.
and you think in modern day, like when people have something on their mind, it's literally chewing them up. Like they're anxious, they're fearful, there's something wrong in their life. You do teeth grinding at night.
You do. It's stress related, and how symbolic is that?
Exactly.
You grind your molars as part of the shin, because that's how it feels insidiously too when you're stressed out. Those thoughts are cyclical, and they're simmering, and they're percolating over and over again.
Exactly.
So one form of releasing that through a stressful way is you grind your teeth.
You grind your teeth, and it's something that is not. It's not even something. This is what's so wild about grinding your teeth. All these different things. It's not even something that you consciously do. It's something that literally your spirit or your body at night, when you're not even thinking, is expressing that kind of uneasiness as a way to, I guess, self-medicate, but it's destructive though too.
Right. The body is doing what it can to soothe itself through those stressful periods, but it's also reminding you in a way to say, like, please pay attention.
There's something wrong.
There's something wrong. Pay attention. It's ironic you say like the molar, because you don't know exactly what's wrong with your teeth until the pain, it starts occasionally, and then you don't pay attention, and then it grows and grows, and then there's an infection right there that needs to be removed.
Absolutely.
So our cyclical thoughts that are percolating and are so ineffective to our well-being, they tend to percolate, and the more you don't pay attention to those, the more they kind of pile up within you.
Absolutely.
And then it comes out in all of these different ways, like lack of sleep, or you're grinding your teeth, or your appetite gets affected.
Or you start getting addicted to comfort food.
Right.
Because you're feeding the fear. You're feeding the fear. You're feeding your anxiety, because and especially when it goes back to not acknowledge, like this painting here, not acknowledging your vulnerabilities or the different things that are really truly bothering you, you're pushing it down. Well, then the only way to handle it is, because you don't want to look at yourself in the mirror, because you have to be prideful, you have to be perfect, you have to be these things, because people are going to devalue you in this society, which is not true. It's not true. But we play these games sometimes with each other.
Right.
And if we're really honest, and we can look at ourselves in the mirror, look at the issue, look what's really getting to us, then we can start healing.
Exactly. It's the answer is within, because most often than not, especially if you're in a social scenario trying to navigate a challenging one, if we pay close attention to the conversations we have, it's like, that person said this person said that. Okay, what exactly is bothering you? How are you interpreting the situation?
Yes.
What is your response? Let's validate that first. Tell me where you're coming from.
Yes.
So when we start looking from outside as the first step, I think the part of the problem is not knowing what's wrong within you, right? Because we don't pay attention to our own well-being.
Oh, no. And we're loose with language.
Right.
language is extremely important, and we'll get into that one in a little bit. Let's let's just go there.
Okay.
So with language, I think a lot of people can be very careless with their language, and they don't realize how destructive language can be. Very familiar. You learn it from your parents. You learn it from your friends in the environment that you're around. Well, do you ever notice how really destructive languages create really destructive neighborhoods? There's a reason.
Right. There's a lingo, and it becomes part of your identity, which is the scary part.
Absolutely. And just real quick, if any of you, if you go onto YouTube, all right, I think he's a Japanese scientist or whatnot, but he put together, and you can look it up on YouTube. It's fantastic, and it's true. Language expressed through snowflakes and water. And he took 2 clear glasses of water, and for 30 days, he spoke hateful words into one glass. And for 30 days, he spoke loving words to another glass. For 30 days, the glass that the sound, the words of love that went into that water stayed pure.
Wow.
The words of hate turned the water moldy and yellow and gray and all the molecules changed. Now think about that. We're 75% water, something like that.
Something
We're
like that,
pretty high in water. Now you think about the words that we say to ourselves. You think about the words you say to other people. Are you literally destroying their molecules by saying hate, like literally saying things with your words? And sometimes people call it good. They'll call, I don't know about you guys, but I never let anyone call me a bitch, even if they think it's funny. I'm like, no, because whatever you think that word may mean, it inherently, it doesn't feel good.
It doesn't feel good.
It doesn't feel good. And so that's what I mean by careless.
It's careless, and also the other piece is when you start to use words to label people.
Yes.
People in that moment tend to forget that they're actually impacted by the other person's behavior, by what they said or did. So when you start name calling each other, you've lost the whole point of starting that conversation, because it's a dead end. It's a dead end, and you're damaging that person's identity.
Oh, totally.
And so people are not very mindful when they have a heated argument, in that, words are about describing that person's actions or behaviors, not them as a person.
Absolutely. And also we have to remember that labels can be manufactured to shut people up, to dismiss them, and to misunderstand. Especially in a society where all of us within like a day and a half can know what is going on in the whole world. Don't you think powerful people don't necessarily want us all to be on the right track? They don't want us knowing the whole darn thing. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Let's get real here. There are people in the world that don't like people getting along because they make money off of people that don't get along. So if you know that there's a powerful tool such as the internet or such as Facebook or whatnot, that, literally within a day, everyone can know what's going on. It's amazing. Well, if we can use that for a truthful thing and really get people to understand what's going on, wow, amazing things could happen. But all of a sudden, as soon as something that could be truthful and honestly talked about, they get these labels that are so nasty thrown on different people, so that people don't listen to the conversation anymore. They just hear there's a manufactured word for it. It's connected to something gnarly. I don't necessarily want to hear what this individual is saying. I just know that they've been labeled as such. And that's it. End of conversation. And guess who wins with those kind of things? The Dr. Evils of the world.
I know people who are very apt at using a lot of... That's a very apt...
Dr. Evil is Dr. Evil petting the little kitty cat.
Right. That's an image. But, it's about using the language for name-calling and labeling the person so that you can actually digress from going to the heart of what's bothering you. And it's scary. It's about being vulnerable, so let me put my defenses up.
So there we've gone full circle.
We did.
So there you shut the self-expression up with a label. Kids are now bottled up even more. So guess what they're going to do? They're going to fight.
Right. exactly.
That's all they have left, is to literally just physically express themselves by punching whatever. Mm-hmm. So, okay. I hope you guys are learning something. We are. We are. That's what I was going to say. We are. We are. All right. So which one would you like to go with next? Let's see. It's like we're in a jungle. I've got like the plant. As soon as I switched the camera around, it was like right on the plant. It looked like we're in some sort of tropical.
Wouldn't that be nice? Doing all of this in the middle of a tropical rainforest.
Well, I have to show you out back because we're halfway there out back. But I gotta build a greenhouse roof.
Oh,
I know. You'll see.
I can't wait.
Yeah, someday.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna probably alternate between because I feel like I have so many thoughts actually coming up for me across the board.
Okay.
So I'm actually gonna alternate between a design on my left to a design on my right.
Okay, sounds good. I'm gonna keep the camera like this angle because the sun coming in here is either creating a super duper shadow that shuts everything off, or this is perfect. Okay. I got this. Okay, so I'm just gonna do it from this angle.
Sure, sounds good. Okay, so I'm going to start off with this one right here. I love this painting, and I say that because I mean, just look at all the different vibrant colors. It has such a majestic appeal to it instantly. Mm-hmm. Or this could be my own bias of these colors talking, but it's gorgeous in that if you look at this, it looks like almost like an earthen, right? So when you look at this earthen, you can see that you have all of these different colors being made within it. And what comes out is this beautiful product that continues to emanate into the universe, right? And for me, these colors represent the different emotions, right? So for me, they're like joy, happiness, excitement, sadness. And it's not about right, wrong. It's not about positive, negative emotions. If you notice, they're all contained within one big earthen. And so when we start to integrate these emotions and look at them as having a very functional value, you're feeling a certain way because it's trying to tell you something needs attention, as we talked about earlier. So when you let them breathe, look at how gorgeous it looks, right? So I'm not saying this is going to be a cakewalk. I'm saying you are going to have challenges because if you look at this one, this has a different color. Yes. This has a different shade. And what that means is not everything is going to be a perfect product. You're going to have challenges. You're going to have something that might not come out the way you want it to. Or you might expect something and that might not happen the way you want it to. The key is this is a limited container as much as our minds and bodies are. We are limited containers for our emotions. The purpose of emotions is not to express them all or hold them all. The reason they come up is because they tell you that there is a certain response that you need to give to the environment because something is happening here where you need to do the work within here to let them out so that whatever is within you gets to breathe a little bit more. And look at the beautiful outcomes though. And so for me, this is what it means. And what's really, I love this because if you look at this part of the painting, this almost looks like the face of a person, right? And so if you look at what's happening, it's almost like, you know, this is the upper part of this person's body. But if you look beneath it, it's almost like all of this work is taking place for this person. This person is not integrated yet. So all of this is taking place within this person. And if you plug this here, it's almost like a completion of this person. And look at all the different colors for this person too, because it shows that the work here comes out and also informs this person's growth. Because if you look at the colors, some of them are here too. And if you look at this side, this person is still in the works compared to this person.
Same colors, but not as much complexity.
Exactly. And if you notice that there are lesser colors from here that are represented here. So this person has a long way to go perhaps, but this earthen is where all the work happens. And if you notice, here's another shape right here. And this also looks to me like it's the shape of a person, like just the head of the person. And if you notice, they're right beneath here. So for this person, it doesn't look like there's really much work being done.
Yeah.
Because if you look at both of these, this person seems a bit more fully formed compared to this. This one feels
almost
more
like that's
disintegrated.
the very beginning, yeah.
Yeah. So it's almost like there are different stages. You start here, you get familiar with this earthen part of emotions,
Yeah.
and then you are in the process of developing it, and this is what it looks like when it's at least partly integrated.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I love most about this painting.
And again, non-judgment. It's just time and movement.
Yeah.
And just growth.
Exactly.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so important. So important. Okay. What's calling your name next?
Oh, I feel all of them are calling my name multiple times. Let's see. That one. That one. This one.
Okay.
So I'm choosing this one because, oh my gosh, this is so rich.
Now this one's called Rain in the Backyard, and I did this, oh my goodness, probably like 2007 or 8. So this is an oldie but goodie.
I love this one. And I say that because this reminds me of a forest. And I say a forest because it's almost like if you look here, this is the shape of a tree right here in this corner.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the trunk. Here's another trunk, right? And these look like trunks to me too.
Mm-hmm.
And different types of plants coming out of here. What I see is, if you look at this part, right, it looks a bit scary. It looks a bit unknown.
It's like a jungle in a sense.
It looks like a jungle right here. So I would understand if I were to start off here, I would be very trepidant to kind of continue along my journey through this forest.
Mm-hmm.
And so as you can see, like the red right here could symbolize some sort of danger. However, if I walk through it and I peel a little bit of the outward appearance of this forest, look at the beauty of the colors that lie beneath it, beneath these trees and plants. If you notice, there's yellow, there's maroon, there's light green. And if you notice, like this represents almost like a beauty of what lies within, right? So if I were to just look at it from the outside and say, this looks like a daunting place and I don't want to be here, I'm never going to know what it actually has to offer for me. But if I take a chance and I venture in and actually dig a bit deeper, like if you notice, look at the beautiful green that symbolizes life right here. And they're beneath here and right here at the center and here. And then look at this, there's yellow and there's maroon too. It's almost like it's offering a platter of flowers or a platter of, I don't know, hope almost. You know, so when you look beneath it, there's much more to this painting. There's much more to this forest than meets the eye. And that's what I like about it, is it feels so integrated, and it's almost like it ties into the work that we talked about earlier in the painting about integrating our emotions, not necessarily positive, negative, good, bad, but it's about, you know, digging a bit deeper to figure out that how we all have so much integrated work to do.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, you know, it's funny. I read something in this In Touch once, and In Touch is this. It's like a monthly pamphlet magazine from Charles Stanley. He's a minister down in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how, you know, some people, they want to seem like they're so positive all the time, and everything's so great. One emotion constantly. So can you imagine a quilt that's bright yellow?
Yeah.
The entire quilt is just
yellow.
bright yellow. Not so much.
No.
But when you have, you know, and people go, oh, I'm not allowed to act like that, or I'm not allowed to express that. Well, you know what? You think of the most beautiful tapestries there are. You have the darks, you have the lights, you have all these different journeys, and you just go through it. And you accept it. You don't have to say, oh, I shouldn't feel that way. That's a bad thing.
Right.
You just go through it, and next thing you know, you look back in your life, instead of having an all bright yellow quilt as a representation of your life and who you are, you have this beautiful quilt with all these different. It's like an Oriental rug.
Exactly.
You know,
Colorful.
yes.
And I think what's also difficult about it is, when you start to feel vulnerable in front of people, that person's discomfort starts to show because they're like, oh gosh, please don't show vulnerability. Let me make you feel better.
Yes.
I hope it gets better soon. Or, oh gosh, don't worry. I'll take care of it. It's like, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. But what I think a lot of times people miss is sometimes people show vulnerability as a way of being genuine and authentic and resilient. They're not looking for advice giving or a solution or sympathy.
Yeah, it's just like, this is what it is.
Right? Exactly. It's like you just have to sit and listen.
Yeah.
That's what they're saying to you. They're saying, I'm comfortable being vulnerable.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
So please don't give me advice. Please don't give me solutions. Please just listen to me.
Yes.
You know, and that can be so powerful.
Yes.
And as I'm talking, it's...
Are we going over here?
Yeah.
Okay.
As I'm talking about that.
And we're moving over here.
You know, it's almost like, look at this. It's almost like as I was talking and my eye fell on this, it's almost like this is vulnerability itself. This is the eye of it, if you notice, and this is how strong it is.
Oh yeah.
It's like a vortex within, and look at it, like how much light it emanates, and look at how it's traveling and it leaves its traces across the painting. Look
Especially in the darkest of nights.
Exactly. And talking about the darkest shades, look at this here. It's spreading here too. And it's interesting because here are all the societal messages in red and green and brown, which are saying, no, I'm going to make life difficult for you because I don't want you to come out. I don't want you to travel. I don't want you to breathe.
Oh, that's true.
You know, but look at this one just sailing across saying, no, I'm comfortable with being me. I'm comfortable expressing myself, and I'm comfortable sharing who I am with you. And look at it mixing with all the challenges that are trying to keep it at bay. It's just sailing across, and it's almost there. So that's what I love about this as we were talking, and it's related so much to what we talked about just now in terms of vulnerability and its expression.
Oh yeah.
And look at this cool thing, right? Most of it is yellow, and it's literally holding this flame within it, right? So here's the challenge. It's not saying you're separate, I don't want to merge with you. It's saying let's merge, let's do this together. And you can see that happening across right here with all the reds and the yellows together.
Oh yeah, it's all blended.
Yeah.
And this one, for those of you listening, this is an oldie but goodie too. So some of you guys have seen this one before, and those who are new to myself and the work, this is called "Oh, the Poppy Fields at Night." And at the time, I was really wanting to discuss the beauty of certain things that can also be chosen for the wrong.
Yeah.
But I also love your interpretation as well on an individual level too, because I think what you just said in expressing, being able to really live out your vulnerability and being honest and truthful and just going with it is also very rebellious in the sense of not going along with the whole ideology of creating economies of taking beautiful things and selling the worst of the worst.
Yeah. And when in fact it's always a combination of things. It's not either or, it's and.
Yeah. It's great. Okay. And just to take a pause real quick, if anybody is watching any of these live feeds and there's a painting that you're interested in, that is a painting that you want to learn more of, or you want to find out how you can collect it, you can just email me at kimberrystudio@gmail.com, and that's Kimberry spelled with an A, not an E, and I'll also put that in the comments as well. So, okay, Lovey, what do you think?
I'm looking at a couple of different things. Oh gosh, this one, because
Okay.
I think these two are connected.
They really are, actually. Let's take both of these guys and set these over on this side of the room, because that lighting is really tricky. We've got some windows up here. There's some windows, and it's really messing up the lighting. So this is a little, much better.
Yeah.
So we can see those guys now.
Yeah. So I'm going to start off with this one right here. This for me is a beautiful seahorse. And I love it because it embodies so much life for me. So you can see that it's not, even though it's by itself, it's really not, because you have, you know, the connection from the outer world to it, using these lighter lines that connect it to the outside world, be it the ocean or life. And if you notice, it's very firm in its roots to where it lives. So you can see that there's a tail right here, and you can see how that tail is kind of interwoven into the outside part of its body. So it remains connected, it remains grounded in life. And if you notice, it's almost like it's using that energy of life to harness the power within it based on all of these different beautiful shades.
And those tiny little veins that just, it starts off with these like thin little veins that goes really thick into the real colors here that create it.
Exactly. And it's almost like, look, you're right, this part of it feels a lot more developed. It feels like all of these different shades, but then each one has a presence of its own. They are blended and yet unique. So it's almost like it has traits of its own that are interconnected and inform one another, and at the same time, each trait is what makes it so unique.
Yeah.
And I look at this, I almost look at it as a snoot, and it's almost like it's defined, it's ready. So it's well developed and it's good to go. That's what that snoot for me means.
Well, I just thought of this too. I didn't think about this before because I've seen the seahorse in this since I did this, but with us talking about all these other different ideas and saying, hey, this part here is the beginning, connecting water, life, whatnot, and it develops into here, and the most intense coloring and you like you said was the snout. Well, what is the nose? The nose is all about instincts.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's so important for us to trust our guts, trust our instincts, and so many times we're taught in society, don't trust your own instinct, listen to what everyone else is saying is the right thing to do, to everyone's detriment. And that's one of the reasons I do the yes ball, is to really encourage people to get back to listening to what's yes for you.
Right. Exactly.
It makes the world a lot more interesting, that's for sure.
Right. That, and also sometimes is you have an environment where majority of the people are thinking and making a decision in a certain direction.
Yeah.
And you're saying, but my gut's saying something else.
Absolutely.
I would definitely just trust that gut, because that's picking up on things from the environment.
Yep.
And it tells you that you're much more grounded than other people. So if you want to continue to use the environment to nurture you, and vice versa, to please believe that base instinct that you get about a decision or a situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to shift gears and I'm going to look at this one. Okay. This one looks so gorgeous. I'm going to take a minute just to look at it. Look at all the different colors.
Did you see this one last time?
I did not.
No, this is a new one too then for you. I couldn't remember if I finished it right before you came last time.
Yeah.
Or right after, and now I'm sure it was after.
Oh my gosh. So I'm gonna switch over to this side. I want to see something. Do you mind if I move it around?
No, go for it. That's always the fun part of these paintings too, is that how we're talking about seeing the world through your own eyes, you're listening to things with your own ears. A lot of these paintings, I love for people to turn them upside down, and we did that last time, just always looking for your own way of being able to see what's really going on.
Yeah, and it gives you different perspectives too. Like
Yes.
there are so many different ways of looking at the same thing.
And it's something we need to remember in so many different things. So true.
Oh gosh, I love this one. And I say that because every time I step back to look at different parts of this painting, I keep getting pulled down to this vase-like structure at the base of it. And it has a very powerful presence for me because look at how much it can emanate. Look at all the streaks of blue, all the different streaks of white that's coming out of this vase-like structure. And I'm trying to pay attention to the background of the green and the white dots, but I keep getting pulled to the blue. And I keep getting pulled to where it's tracing me to. And what I like about this is, if you look at the base of this painting, it's almost like I feel it's the earth, right? And I feel like if this vase feels this grounded to the earth, it's actually connected to its identity within its context, right? So the earth is its context, it's where it resides, and it's drawing. Look at the energy that it draws, right? So once it feels humble, it values humility, it values knowing where it came from, it harnesses that energy, that birth, that strength to make its presence felt in the universe around it. And it doesn't matter about the direction, or it doesn't matter about the outcome, because this is about letting your skills, your strengths, your vulnerabilities, your traits, your different parts of your identities, just letting it breathe. Look at the impact it can have on the universe around you. It's spreading that energy across. There's not one single space where I don't see the lines spreading across and interweaving with each other. And what I love about it is, you see this base right here, which I called the earth a few minutes ago. If you notice, you have the same pattern across here on the sides.
Yeah.
And what that means is, once you're authentic, your environment will hold it in a very nurturing way. I don't see the background as really interfering or interfacing with the blue and the white lines that are emanating from across this pot. It's almost like it's saying, please come, add some color, add some presence, add some meaning, because I'm holding you.
Yeah.
And I love this because I think it's, no matter from which angle I look at it from, it speaks to not only how the environment can hold and nurture us when we're authentic, but how much we can add meaning to the environment by bringing our true selves into this world.
Absolutely.
That's what I get from this.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love you. I could listen to your interpretations all day.
I think I could have a conversation with you the whole day.
It's so true. Oh, this is so great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, we covered all of the paintings on the first floor, and it looks like we might have to take a little bit of a break, because I've got to, well, first of all, we probably need to take a little drink break, because we've been talking for a good hour or whatnot.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a little bit of break, and then we're going to come back for part 2. We're going to be on the second and third floor.
Yeah.
And we'll see you guys in a little bit. So I hope you're enjoying this, and as much as we are.
I'm loving it, and I hope you are too.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll see you guys in a little bit. All right. Bye.